They don't edit anything though.
Okay.
So yeah,
I'll,
we'll just
I'll
go.
keep the MFs to a minimum.
Hey, I'm just gonna read this. Hey, everybody, welcome to welcome to the Sustainiacs. I'm Mike Vincent. He's Scott McDonald. I know a number of Scott McDonalds. You're none of them, but now I know you. So I'm gonna add it to the list. And if you didn't know it, you are actually a manufacturing guru, and your opinions are 100% your own. You
That's
can use
correct.
that on your LinkedIn tagline if you want to.
I do. That is my tagline.
It is. I was just reading it verbatim.
Okay.
So
Okay. I thought that was a little creepy, but I thought I better say it.
no, I put it on there. So, brother, this the Sustainiacs is all about but it's everything to do with sustainability, right? And it's not just recycling; it's carbon emissions, it's carbon sequestration, it's uh, cultivating seaweed in coastal ocean farms. It's uh, cricket farming, and now I can add uh, black soldier fly larva farming. I kid you not. It's a thing. It's pretty darn cool too, but it's all that things, all those things, right? And digging into the industries that are obviously in the target zone for sustainability, environmental movements, and those that aren't, right? And stripping away the hype. This isn't a got you thing. It's a learning experience for everybody who's out there who's like, oh, I'm into sustainability. Really? Do you know the ins and outs of manufacturing of packaging? Because I know a dude who does. In fact, he's the guru. His name's Scott McDonald. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you, Michael.
It's
And
great.
I know you make great points right away. It's more than just one thing, although my expertise primarily is in plastics. Um, Growing up on a farm, and I did commercial crabbing one summer. It's all you learn. There's all these other things that are involved. Um,
Yeah,
I even compost in my backyard. I've got a big hole I dig, and I bury all my vegetable matter, all that stuff. You have to.
yep,
And
yep. Do the
but to stay
composting.
on track here today, um,
Oh, we don't want to stay on track. That's boring.
well, the plastics is a big deal. My personal opinion is somehow we got to get out of polymers, but I'm not a chemist and I don't have a chemistry background. But when you start talking about forever chemicals, you're pointing them at plastics.
Right.
Yeah, because
Right.
it's on. If you've ever been in a plastics plant, when they're making food grade products, they're spraying it with food grade silicone. Now, if you get on the
Mm.
dictionary and look up silicone, it says somewhere in that dictionary description, it's a carcinogen.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how do you justify giving something a food grade label? To me, this is a future RFK target.
It sounds like it sounds
Yeah,
like it sounds like it should be. I guess so. If you were to actually be asking that question and not rhetorically, in my mind, I'm answering every even rhetorical questions. In my mind, I answer them right to try and find those answers. I would say that it's probably because the FDA is good at approving an acceptable risk level.
maybe, and then maybe they got bought off. I'm sorry, I'm starting to see demons everywhere, like a traditional conservative Republican. I hate to say it because I was always an independent, but now I'm starting to see people bought and traded too easily.
They are.
And
I
so, like
don't.
you say
Yeah.
FDA, I want to know where they're getting their money, who's doing the studies. You
That's
know,
exactly right.
I'm
That's
sorry,
exactly
I'm
right.
kind of real cynic here.
That's all right. That is all right. That's all right, man.
Well,
All are welcome, and we'll dig through this stuff. And I agree with you. It's interesting because I have visited an FDA plastics packaging manufacturer, bottle manufacturer, right here in Chattanooga. For I mean, for not food but medicine ingestion
all
bottles,
right,
right?
that's fine.
Mouthwashes and that type of stuff, right?
Go back and ask them what they use as a mold release.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure that they would tell me or not, but
Well, probably
I
not.
will tell you that the operation I was there as looking to take their rejects, etc., to recycle them, and it's quite interesting to see what they rejected and what they didn't reject. And this plant was 5 tons of perfectly fine looking bottles to me were rejected every week. 5 tons
Oh, well,
every week.
if you go anywhere into manufacturing, you went into a Corning glass plant one time where they threw away more than they accepted. It was amazing that cheap Corel stuff that every single male had them. The box of four, you had 4 plates, 4 cups, 4 saucers. Remember
Oh
that one?
yeah, 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 yeah,
Okay,
yeah, yeah.
I saw it was in the plant, and I'm watching this, and I'm going, "Oh my God, they're throwing everything away." I mean, they're going like this, and they're holding up a whole little. There's a little ding there. There's a little black spot there. Boom.
Gone,
You and I would have
gone.
used the throwaways.
Oh yeah, well, we there used to be a place in Northeast Ohio where you could go and get Stouffer's mislabeled food, and I lived in college on
Well, I'm
that.
sure.
Man,
How many of us
because
lived on junk food? Oh yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah. Well, you never knew what was in the box. That's what it was. That's why.
If it
That's why you
filled your
buy it.
belly in college, that you were happy with it.
Exactly. It was edible. Therefore, I was happy.
Well, I worked in the dining hall just to get through. All right. So in the days I was working there, the minimum wage was like 2.30, I think.
Yeah, 235. I remember went to 233. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah.
so I'm working there for this little bit of money, but also if you were good, and I would clean the bathrooms and stuff like that the girls refused to do, so I could then I wouldn't punch in by going and eat first and then punch in. So they fed me too. So I got like 3 or 4 meals a week plus the pay, and that made sense.
Yeah,
You-
that's
you- you-
fantastic.
Yeah, no, however you get through school. But
Yeah.
again, I'm getting off track here.
No, it's okay. It's quite all right. So let's talk about packaging. So you're primarily in plastics, and that's fine. That's great. There's other packaging, obviously corrugated and aluminum and all kinds of different things, but particularly in the plastics industry. So how long have you been in the industry?
Decades. I hate to say that. It sounds like I'm unemployable today, but let's see.
Yeah.
I entered the plastics business in '84.
Okay.
So
Okay.
do the math.
So yeah, right. So in '84, was it still very much just the throwaway culture,
Well,
or was it changing by then?
it was changing because all the plastics, even no matter when I was in, you'd rather have the recycled money from recycled scrap than your own paycheck every year. That goes back
Hmm.
decades. The recycled value has always been high. And a plastic company throws away very little plastic. The
Hmm.
floor sweepings, yeah, because it's contaminated. Nobody
Oh,
wants
yeah, I mean, yeah, you're talking about like the rejects or the
right,
purges and that
right.
type of
All
stuff.
that
Yeah,
stuff. It's always had a value to it.
yeah.
And if you can keep it separated, and there's the key, if you can keep it separated, it has a lot of value. Even a small
Hmm.
company will generate a couple $100,000 a year in scrap.
Right, 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 right. That is not floor sweepings and
Right,
and
that's
that
right.
and that
The
type of
floor
stuff.
sweeping still obviously go in the trash can.
Right.
But
So was that being used? Was that always being going back into the content? Is that what
well,
did reintroduce it right there in the plant? Because there's a lot that do that now that have that. But was
well,
that
it
always the
depends
case,
how
or was there
vertically
somebody
integrated.
buying? Was a third party taking it and
It
brokering
depends how vertically integrated you are. Now,
it? Okay.
if you can extrude in house, which most little guys can't, they're just a processor of film and sheet. Those guys grind it or bale it and then send it to a third party processor.
Right. Gotcha. Gotcha.
That's a
Gotcha.
big investment to go to the next level.
To do the extrusion yourself.
Yes, sir. Big. Because you not only have to be able to do it, which is a skill set in itself, you have to consume it or sell it after you've made
Right.
film and sheet. And you have to have big volume jobs. You can't have little jobs if you're going to extrude and make new sheet and film.
Yeah, that makes sense, right? So the smaller businesses are just they're doing the thermal forming, right?
Right, right. So I think the number was around 2 million pounds. If you didn't create a need for 2 million pounds a year, or at least a million, you were wasting your investment money.
I got you. So even so, excuse me. If you're doing extrusion and injection molding type of stuff, right?
Yes.
Um, Could you not easily take that plastic back into your own vertical? You still send it out due to
Well,
compounding issues
injection's
and that type of
different.
stuff.
In injection, a robot or a person can throw the scrap into a grinder. It grinds it,
Yeah,
and you put it right back in the hopper. That's
yeah,
easy, and everybody
yeah,
does that. That's commonplace. Been for
yeah.
decades.
Gotcha, gotcha, gotcha. So there's no there. So now that the difficult part, I guess, becomes, well, not is then the PCR, right? That the post consumer resins and recycled resins,
Well,
getting those packaged,
some
right?
industries won't let recycled in their supply chain. Medical, I've seen that where the guys will specify in your purchase order, it must be 100 virgin content of these specific resins from these specific vendors, and that's there it is. You can't get out of that.
So
They
is that so? You are you now talking about the primary touching or the like the secondary and tertiary packaging for medical, right? In other words,
I'm
the
talking about
bag
medical.
holding the saline or the bags that are holding the bags of saline.
I'm talking about medical devices. You got
The device, so the
a device,
tubing and that
right?
type of stuff. Yeah,
A syringe, a stir, anything that's directly touching the medicine
the medicine or
or the
injecting into the
right
skin.
or food. A lot of times they'll do it with food too, and
Yeah,
say no, you cannot use a recycled product. Now, for years they weren't letting any recycled touch food, but now that's changed. Last probably
right.
been 15 years, and they'll accept recycled if it meets the FDA certification. Well,
Which is interesting in itself because it's not really a certification; it's a letter of non-objection.
right, and thank you. Correcting my terminology. It's
Yeah,
a non objection, and I had that discussion years ago too when they changed the verbiage.
yeah.
It's not objectionable. All right, so who's putting that label on that?
Well,
Well, because think about this: when you have
yeah,
recycling, guy is doing some pad printing or he's doing some hot stamping, and those rejects go back into the supply chain too. So those films, those paints, those solvents somehow get up in the waste stream.
sure.
There's cross contamination in so many plants.
There really is, and so my understanding of it is really you pretty much hire a consultant who or lawyers, in other words, who then yeah, right, who then look at your process and say, okay, if you adhere to those processes from the collection source all the way through to production of the pellets and then how it's going to go back into the stream, if all of it is conducted in the manner that you say it is and with the machinery that you have listed, then you should be okay, right? And
Well,
then
but
that,
then you get the guys on the production floor involved. Okay,
yeah,
all
then
right.
you get
So
humans involved.
I'm walking through a roasting plant making nuts 20 years ago, 25 years ago,
Yeah,
and they're welding next to the roaster, and I'm watching the welding splatter go into the process. Like, oh my god! So you go home and you're eating the nuts. All right, that's a little hard. That's welding splatter. Somebody's like, well, what company was that? I'm not going to say which one it was.
yeah, no, no, no,
They were local at the time, but they moved down south. But this is an individual maintenance guy deciding he's going to do what he wants to do on on this schedule, and
yeah,
not thinking about anything else. Now, quality should have come in there and stepped right on him, but they didn't, and let an outsider walk by and see it. Oh my God!
yeah. That's some lack of control right there,
Oh,
right?
absolutely. No, I don't remember if they're ISO or not, but even then, even before ISO, your quality people said, you can't weld on this line today.
Yeah, and there's some industries that and some companies that adhere to those safety and rules very strictly, and some that don't. I've been fortunate enough to work for those that enforce it very strictly, and sometimes it's very frustrating
Well,
because
even
you
with those
can,
guys, you have the lockout tag out on a machine. And I had a guy almost lose his entire hand because somebody went back, ignored all the safety procedures, overrode the top, unlocked the machine, turned the machine on, and cut the guy's hand off.
wow,
Yeah, but
yeah,
but you can't prevent stupid. You can do all these things that like wake up, you're stepping on the process, wake up, you're about to turn on the process, but they still did it.
right, yeah, it's crazy, so Why do you? I mean, we're getting towards talking about the manufacturing and the EPR legislation and that type of stuff of in the packaging and where it is and opinions. But why is it that you think, after even knowing that the scrap is valuable, why has it been that like the corrugated packaging, right? The paper and craft packaging and so on and so forth has really led the way in recycling. I mean, they've been fairly efficient in gaining back the post consumer for a long, quite a bit of time,
Well,
right?
I'm not an
And
expert in
plastics not.
well, I'm not an expert in corrugated, but it looks to me like it's easier to segregate
So
from
that's
an
the thing. It's just
outsider's point of view. Oh yeah, the cross contamination plastics is a nuisance and it's a real pain.
so when you talk about cross contamination, you're talking about the different polymers separating the different
Correct.
polymers and maybe the processes, right? Because even the same polymer, like, and most people understand it as like number ones, twos, threes, fours, fives, and six, sevens. HD, LD, PET, etc. It's not even just that you can't have PVC in your PET and have
Right.
a good outcome, right? It's also just within PET the separation and contamination
Well, you got
can be there,
colors
right?
and you've got different grades. Like there's a high heat PET and a standard PET, and I'll bet they don't mix well.
Right. PETG, as
Well,
we
G is a
discussed.
different animal because it had a glycol to it. So they
Yeah,
don't that unless you're intentionally mixing it in there for some reason, it doesn't belong there either.
yeah. So the cross contamination is huge, even if the consumer understands how to recycle it. It still becomes an issue.
Well, how do you're putting the stuff curbside, all right?
Yeah,
And we trust the hauling company to take it and do the right thing with it, which of course isn't true. Sometimes they just drop it in the dump.
yeah,
Um, but if they do the right thing and you get to the recycling where they start splitting apart, remember it's a one stop at your driveway, and you've got all these different polymers, and the boxes are obvious. Throw those together. The corrugated and the
yeah. Piece of
SBS,
cake.
and you can throw those together. But then you get down to this. These are all these clear things, and some are PVC, some are PET. What do you do?
Yeah,
Now, under a light, they'll show up differently. And my understanding is there's sniffers. I've never been at that end of the separation. Love to go, but are you going to have somebody on work release or a prisoner sitting there pulling pieces apart?
yeah,
Because
yeah.
that's where I see the air cannons, but not everything's going to work on an air cannon,
Or the float separation.
right? Okay, so but again, I don't
There's
expect
optical sorters, there's float sorters, there's all those different types of things, but they cost a lot of money and they're not 100% accurate.
right. And then so when you get a piece of PVC in your PET and it destroys the guy's rollers in his process, he's looking for somebody's head. That just cost him tens of thousands of dollars at least, and the downtime.
Yeah, no, no, those are great point. And so you've got so the recycling goes to the easiest that you can do in
Correct.
order to get it back into packaging, right?
Correct.
The
Now
easiest
something.
one to find is PET bottles. Everybody knows drinking
Right.
water
Right.
bottles.
And I
They're
believe,
not going to be PVC. They're not going to be PETG. They're going to be PET. Period.
but you go
And they're
buy
either clear or they're green.
right. You go buy hand sanitizer, and some of them I see are in vinyl PVC, and
Right.
some are in PET. All right. So something in there they can't put in the PET bottle, or it's PET's got a very low impact coefficient. It doesn't take much abuse.
Right.
As you well
Right.
know, you drop your water bottle on the ground and it starts leaking.
Yeah, or they make it thin enough that it's flexible, and as soon as you open the lid, the water squirts to the and hits the top of the airplane.
Well, well, but that's intentional too because they've been mandated to take the plastic out of the bottle.
Yeah, exactly. So make less and less and
Yeah,
less
so
and
you and
less
I
of it.
complain about the rigidity of the bottle, but in reality, they've been given a mandate to take X number of pounds out of the process.
Right, and but that's also part of the issue of getting the recycled content into the packaging as well. Is just to make sure that the well, you've got these mandates, right? But you also have to try and make sure that the functionality and the quality of that packaging is there, right? And
Absolutely.
recycled resin degrades and degrades and degrades as you go.
Correct. And especially PET. They have heat memories. And
Right.
each time you reheat it, it becomes a little less flexible, a little less impact resistance, till you end up with something. I had one years ago, one group of rolls of film that wouldn't form. Forget about perform, it wouldn't form. So we sent it all back to manufacturer, and I got a lot of grief for that one. The guy said, "Well, I can sell this anywhere." Well, then sell it to somebody else. I can't use your film. But
Yeah.
it becomes so many heat memories in it. It didn't work for me.
Yeah. You couldn't get, so it can
I
only be
couldn't make a
done.
good functional part.
So so in your manufacturing, right? Have you used or advised in those that are trying to put a percentage of PCR back in content back into their packaging?
Oh, absolutely, many times. The biggest thing is the question is, will it work for me?
Hmm.
Or what are you doing? You're pouring something hot into it? Is it cold? I mean, you especially food, and and then of
Yeah, is it
course,
going to go from the freezer to the microwave or the
right.
refrigerator to the microwave or what? Yeah,
Well, most things like a yogurt cup is considered a multi-layer structure. So there's just not. It looks to the eye, you go, it's one thickness of plastic. No, it can be five or even seven. There's a moisture barrier in there. There's an oxygen barrier in there. There's the base material. I'm not a extrusion expert, but I know it's a multi-layer structure. So
right.
those things mix together. But do they mix everywhere? Again, I'm not in the recycling end. I don't think they do. If you had a PET yogurt cup, which I'd never seen one, they're usually propylene. But if they
Yeah,
were
usually PP. Yeah.
right, an olefin, polyethylene or polypropylene, but
Hmm.
they're all multi-layer structures because you can't let the oxygen through and you can't let the air through. Why? It degrades the product
Right.
or allows it to spoil.
Mm. And or light. You can't let the light through it as well.
Right. Well, that's why they got that metal lid, the
Foil. Yeah, the
foil
foil
lid.
lid.
Right. It's a
Yeah.
metal lid.
Yeah.
It's not a plastic lid yet. I'm sure they're looking for it. My gut feeling is polymer's got to go long term. But again, I'm not a chemistry major.
Yeah. Is so in your opinion, where is, I mean, there's plenty of hurdles, right? And there's plenty of issues that are out there. And if someone were talking to you and say, "Look, I'm going to start recycling," and they spoke to you, they'd probably walk away going, "Well, hell, forget it." But I don't think that's really your opinion,
No, no, it's not.
is
No, it's
forget it.
not. I'm warning you. It's not an easy step.
Right,
That's all.
exactly, and that's what I'm getting to, and I understand that, and that's what I'm getting to. So you were talking about all these difficulties that are out there, right? So in your, as a manufacturer, you're a manufacturer out there, and you're advising the recycling community. How how do we fix this? What are your opinions
Well,
on
the first
that?
thing I would say, if you're going to be in thermoforming or injection, can you mold one resin all the time?
Right,
Yes,
right.
no. The more resins you do, excuse me, or the more custom you are, the more difficult it becomes.
Hmm.
So if you were making yogurt cups all day, it's easy. You're using one film from one guy who's making, or you're making yourself, and that's all you do. That's easy.
Yeah, and one
Everybody wants your scrap.
and one color.
Right. Everybody wants your scrap.
Yeah.
Then you won't have to. You'll be fighting them off.
So what you're saying is design, packaging design first. Is
Um,
that kind of what you're alluding to?
no, well, yeah, that too. But what are you making? Are you making things out of propylene? You making things out of PET? You making things out of ABS? What are you making?
Yeah.
What are you really good at? That would be if anybody was asked me what should I do, I'd say what are you good at first. What are you good at? If you're really good at making clear blisters, which is difficult today,
Yep.
there's so much competition in that market. But even if you're really good, can you make them competitively? Sunoco loves to make those things, and they're pretty damn cheap.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
So if you're going to go into business against them, what are you doing?
Right.
Are you intentionally trying to not make money?
Well, yeah, there would be some where that question seems to be a yes. And some
Well,
people that I talked to, which is not the right answer, but it seems like maybe they did answer yes and said kept going
well,
anyway.
20 years ago, I started steering all my sales reps out of the blister market because you could see it. No matter what price I threw down, the predecessor of Sunoco was Alloy. Alloy would throw to a lower price. And then the Chinese would jump in. That was lower than that. Like, good Lord, is there bottom? No, there's not.
Gotcha.
I saw some
So
guys coming out of Poland that were so cheap, I think the government's subsidizing
gotcha. So
them.
if I'm going into, I want to start recycling polypropylene,
Okay.
right? Because this particular community, which you could probably throw a dart at a map and you'll hit the exact right community. It doesn't matter. Is not recycling it because almost nobody does. There's very little.
Right. Propylene's not
Um,
a favorite one to recycle.
right. How do you change that to do? What would you do to try and make that something that would work?
Well,
From your perspective as a manufacturer, what are you
all right.
looking for?
The easy way, I'm making propylene things. You sell it back to
Yeah,
the guy who sell it.
you're making propylene things, and the perfect person walks in and says, "Look, I got the recycled stuff. We're going to start recycling this." What are you looking for to hear?
Well, if I was already running propylene, I go back to the guy who's making the sheet and film for me. I sell it back to him, and they're always willing to do that. Especially it's one
Right.
color, one grade. And that's
Yeah, sure, and because that's high quality control in
right.
that type of a closed loop scenario. But I'm
Correct.
talking about PCR, dude. You don't know where the hell this stuff's coming
No,
from.
and that's the danger because um, printing inks, um, any kind of contaminants can get in there. And then if they're going to use PCR in a food grade application, now you're saying those inks in there are not harmful. I'm a real pessimist on additives into the mix. You've heard it already. I don't want
Oh,
to sound like you.
yeah, absolutely. I know you are, but there are processes that are currently working and being developed to fix that type of problem. I mean, when you start getting into chemical recycling or chemical washing, like if you're familiar with like Pure Cycle, backed by P&G and stuff like that.
Well, if I'm being selfish now, being the manufacturer, I'm going to
Yeah,
say I want a virgin grade product, and I don't want to play with this stuff that you may be, and then I get caught in your lawsuits with you. But if we're going to go down that PCR level, can you hold me harmless?
mm.
They used to jokingly, I'm the house lawyer.
Can you hold me
Can
harmless?
you hold me harmless? You're going to supply the material, and you say I'm going to be forced to use this recycled material. Can you give me a document that says you're going to hold me harmless for using that material you're supplying?
Yeah, yeah.
Again, I'm the house lawyer.
No, I get it. I mean, and that's kind of the game with the FDA letter non-objection, right? The FDA LNO is, and that's what I was saying is, you've got this firm that says, okay, we'll go to the FDA and say this is what your process is. We'll get a letter of non-objection, and as long as you adhere to these, you're good.
Correct.
And that's your paper that holds you harmless,
Right. I can have something
theoretically, right?
theoretically, but at least you got some wall between you and the consumer where
You've
they go.
got you've got a firewall between you somehow, right?
Although you can sue anybody for anything, it appears.
Yeah, I've learned that you can for sure, and there's a
Yeah.
lot of money defending bogus lawsuits, which is ridiculous. So I'm sure you are a proponent of tort reform as
Oh,
well.
absolutely. No, it's ridiculous, especially in the cities. The cities are looking to balance their budgets by suing somebody.
Well, I mean, yeah, you can. Well, I case in point, California is suing Exxon for not recycling at the same time as Exxon is spending a $500 million to expand their already operational recycling plant.
Yeah, but
How does that make sense?
well, any of the more liberal places do that.
I
Baltimore.
know, but I mean, they're
I'm in
suing.
Baltimore, and Baltimore's. Every time I see them sue somebody over something like, that's not has nothing to do with the lawsuit. Is I my budget is this number of $1 million short this year. How am I going to get that?
Yeah,
That's what it looks like to me. How do I recoup the money? If I keep raising the tax on the manufacturer, if I keep making it more difficult for them to exist, they're going to leave, right?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
I question whether I staying in the United States was the correct move for us years ago. There were opportunities to move to Mexico.
yeah,
I
yeah.
had competitors that did it. Now, a couple of them messed up really bad. They didn't. They tried to pay a low wage scale and Mexico, and people would take the job there until they got the job at the automotive plant down the street, and then they skipped.
Yeah. So these lawsuits, and there's greenwashing lawsuits, et cetera, and there's outright just what they call misleading. It was a misleading, not lying. They were misleading,
Yeah.
right? They were misleading people. Um, these lawsuits. There's some that are proponents of those because they think it forces the industry to move forward to avoid these things, right? I'm going to guess that you think they're detrimental, but to the businesses, and I'm not going to. I don't want to argue that point.
No, 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 no.
My
We're
point
not
is
going
this.
down that hole.
No, we're not going to go down that hole. But my point is this: is you would agree? I think that recycling is a good idea if it worked perfectly, right? I mean, it's a
Oh,
good thing to do.
absolutely. The
So
consumers.
how do we motivate that in the right way? Is what I'm trying to get at from in your opinion. How does
Well,
it get motivated, and can it be done? Because even if you motivate it in the right way, can the industry do this, or are we just like too far behind in technology and we'll get there?
I don't think we're too far behind. I think that what scared the hell out of everybody is 15 years ago, Walmart, a woman named Amy Zodelmeyer, I believe her name was, and she came out of left field and said, "I'm going to mandate PET in the plant or in the in the store unless you've got a really damn good reason." Well, there were guys out there who said, "Well, my product will not work in PET," and they had to prove it. But for the most part, Walmart made their suppliers and packaging go to PET. So
Okay.
if all the big guys did that, that forces everybody. And that changed the equipment manufacturers. A lot of guys had to upgrade their process because their PVC machines wouldn't run PET. So that money is already in the has been spent. Most guys can run PET.
So a demand within the free market itself is a way
Right,
to
right.
make this
That's
thing
to me
move.
the simplest way. You don't tax it. Just say, I want PET in any place that it can be used. And if you don't want to use it, you're going to have to prove why you can't.
But doesn't that have to come through like a government thing for that to actually? Well, I mean, there's got to be some sort of association to make that happen, right? Or
I
no?
would think just Target and Walmart and Amazon. My God, just those guys mandating it is going to set everybody in line.
How do you motivate them to do that through tax incentives?
I don't think so. I think Walmart did it on their own. They've got to
Well,
have their
sure.
they got to have their own little group. Everybody always has their own little group. I'm not familiar with their group, but I'm sure they got a little one. Figure out where Amy Zodelmeyer is today. She's probably heading up one of those things.
Where's Amy Zodelmeyer when you need her, right?
Right, right. And
In one
she
of these
we get her
places.
on a podcast.
I've written her name down. I may have to call her and see if she's around and can
She's
get on
somewhere.
because it.
And I remember a lot of thermoformers and now the extrusion companies talking scared about 15 years ago. Like, oh God. And then they were told they had to push their PVC in every way. And then all of a sudden one day, we're not pushing PVC anymore.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's got to be the volume, right? Because I've spoken to other manufacturers like um, Jane Abernethy. She's sustainability at human scale. The office tool manufacturer, the chairs, stands, desks, everything that you could in and
What resin is she using?
I can't remember what I can't remember what it. Well, some of it is the nylons from fishing nets specifically. That's the majority of what they're doing. Right? It's very difficult to supply or to get a consistent supply of reprocessed fishing net stuff because it comes from all over the world. It's so the consistency of the degradation or the quality of it is very
Well,
difficult
nylon's
to
going to be a contaminant in most packaging applications.
Well, they're making. She's not making packaging out of
Well, I
it.
know,
She's
but I'm
making.
saying when you're trying to segregate materials, that's going to be a contaminant.
It is, but the point was this: is when the major thing that hurdle besides finding consistent supply of the stuff, right, was the fact that they don't make their own parts. But they're assembling the chairs, but they have vendors who make those pieces parts that go together, right? And so
Where are
when
they
they go
buying
to the well, I don't know, but
them?
when they go to these manufacturers, right, and they say, "Look, we want 20% of this reprocess and I'll supply the vinyl, right? This is not an easy proposition to do because that vendor is not just making parts for them. And they've got to change a process for that particular customer,
Well, a
right?
lot of times that customer also wants to toll convert. They think they're so big and they're so powerful that they say, I'm going to supply the resin and you got to make these many parts out of this material and you're toll converting. And that's not a place a manufacturer wants to be at all. They don't want
What is, I've
that's
never heard, what does toll converting
that's
mean? What is
buying
that?
machine time.
Okay, I got you.
You mark up your labor, you mark up your machine, you mark up your resin. You're saying I can't mark up the resin. That's going to be, any big guy is going to say, no, thank you.
Yeah, yeah. That I mean, that's really the hurdles that are there, and kind of the questions and expertise that I'm looking at. Discussing with you is how does that conversion take place? And it sounds like the only thing is volume, right?
Well, in any
If
recycling,
everybody's got to do it at the same time, kind of thing,
right?
right?
You're gonna flip a switch, so to speak. Now, you're about 30. You probably know this number better than me. It's around 30% of the PET in this country is recycled. About 30%,
Well,
and that
about 30% enters the recycling system.
right, which is the which
Is
is the
pretty
highest,
accurate.
which is the highest number in the country. Everything else is far less.
Oh yeah, way less, way less. But the amount actually once it enters it, drops it way down. It's not anywhere
Of
near
course, you're
actually
going to lose
30.
several percent doing anything.
Yeah,
All
yeah,
right,
yeah, yeah.
so go. Let's take another recycling example. Lead
Sure,
batteries. Almost when I was in college years ago, almost 100% of the lead in this country was recycled. Think about that.
yeah, it's true.
So how do they do it? They have a core charge on the batteries.
Yeah,
So what is your economic incentive? And this is going back in the 80s. It was 100%. So what is your economic incentive to make these manufacturers and consumers recycle the stuff?
right.
Isn't it?
But
It's got to be economics. That's the only thing that works.
it
You
has to be economics. But is that through EPR legislation? Then does it? Did they put it on the packaging?
I'd
Or
have to.
not even a packaging manufacturer, not even on a packaging manufacturer, the person ordering it from the packaging manufacturer, which is actually pressure on the packaging manufacturer, right?
I'd have to see the law. I'd be brutally honest because I'm against anything that sounds like a tax on the manufacturer because that don't work.
But that's what EPR really is, right?
It's not going to work
I
because
mean, it's some iterations of it that I've seen.
if you're up in Berry International, you're in Dow, you're in any of these big companies with big processes.
Yeah,
Why do you want to be in a business where the government starts taxing you more?
but you don't. I don't
Right.
think.
So
I mean,
you get out of that business, you let the Chinese have it, and you go in AI, you go in defense, whatever, pharmaceuticals, you go into something else that makes more money.
so
I can't.
it's a killer of industry.
Right. And the average person, everybody I knew had a father or grandfather worked in manufacturing. You walked in the door, you didn't have any skill sets. They taught you how to do this or that. They kept moving you up to one day you ran the whole damn place.
Yeah,
And that was
yeah,
a very common story everywhere.
very true,
So
very true.
it's still a path with the right company.
No, it definitely is. But so how you know? I mean, you agree that we should be recycling, and it's a good thing to go do, right? To
Oh,
repurpose
absolutely.
recycled news.
And I don't think you're going to find anybody to argue against it.
No, no, right. I don't. Right, exactly. So, is it important enough to find the solution? Do you think?
I think so. I think you have to.
So how do we find? So where do we get to that? Where is that compromise that is between taxing an industry out of existence, right, and forcing the issue?
Hmm.
That's really that's difficult, right? I mean, that's
Yeah, I don't
really
know. I
hard
have
to
your
do.
answer there. I hate to say that. I'm out of my wheelhouse there.
Yeah, right. I mean, no, I am too, and I think that's really what everybody is searching for is trying to figure out where that is. I mean, you saw COP 29; they couldn't come to an agreement.
Yeah,
They still can't figure out what to do with plastics, right? They
well,
could try for
you've got
years.
some forever chemicals in there. It's showing up in all kinds of things that shouldn't show up. And my brother's a doctor,
Yeah,
and we argue plastics all the time.
yeah. I
And
bet you do.
yeah, we do. He's over at Hopkins. So
Yeah.
he's seeing the results of poisons in the population, that kind of stuff. And of course, he looks back at me in the oil industry and goes, "Oh, it's you,
Yeah, of course. Yeah, right.
me."
Yeah, but it's also the demand of the consumer, right?
Well, that's that. Therein lies even the drug problem. You're sitting there pointing to Mexico, and you're saying you're letting that stuff in. He's going, "Quit buying the crap."
Well, just say no. Remember the
Right.
big
Oh, Nancy
controversy
was
over
good with
just
that.
say
Oh
no?
yeah, Nancy was good with that. And there's some truth in that too. So here we are. Should we just say no to plastics? It's
I don't think that's possible, dude. To tell you the truth.
I agree because again I think I mentioned the other day. Everybody says, "Well, we'll just make it out of wood or trees." Like,
Yeah, no, that's not
no, the
better. That's worse,
Lorax.
actually.
We all knew that. The Lorax. The Lorax showed you that when the last tree's gone, so are you.
Yeah, exactly. And that's 100% right. That's
Right. So
100% right.
I don't have the answer. I hate to be that brutally honest. I can help figure it out, but I but by by
Yeah,
giving meaningful input into what's a manufacturer going to stand, what can they withhold, what can they withstand. I had a buddy of mine come in from the Defense Department one time in my plant. He said, "Oh, you can afford a couple more percent." I looked at him like, "Are you crazy?
yeah, yeah,
A couple percent. I'm making a couple percent. Most thermoformers are less working on far less than 10.
yeah, yeah,
It was
yeah,
tough to
yeah.
make 5%.
So, is there a way to start to force the hand, or I guess of having um, just some sort of packaging regulation through EPR, EPR, or however you want to label it, doesn't matter. EPR
Right.
doesn't have to be a
Right.
taxation thing, but some sort of packaging regulation where in this category, whatever that is, you break it down. It doesn't matter theoretically. This category you can package it these couple of ways. In this category, that couple of ways, and in this category, and you have the industry experts. So if it's in food, generally you know what food, and there's acceptable packaging that could be for larger, broader categories of food, right? It just doesn't have to be this. And if the most sensitive has to be this packaging, then it's okay for the less sensitive too, right? Like the packaging you need for yogurt will work for milk. It'll work for cheese. It'll work for just about any most vegetables and stuff like that. Anything that's canned and that type of stuff because it is of a higher
Right.
sensitivity
You're buying a
already.
cell. You're buying a cell phone, and it comes in a plastic package. It doesn't need to be the same quality as the stuff in food.
Exactly, but there's many different things in the cell phone that can come pens
Right.
this that can come in that same packaging. That's what I'm saying. So there's that, and so now we have this maybe not one homogeneous. That's not possible. One homogeneous packaging type, but maybe actually just the seven numbers that people understand. And if the seven were actually inclusive of each other, or exclusive of each other, but were the actual categories. There were no subcategories, in other words.
Well,
That would make things work a bit better, right? Because just in polypropylenes, it's insane. In number five, there's so many different categories in there that contamination is huge, and you can't do it.
well, in theory that sounds good, but if we are we talking packaging, we talking everything here because if
Well, I mean, everything's going to make it even worse, dude. I
well,
don't
yeah,
know if
about to
you
say
get.
because if let's say you're going to make parts for a streetcar, all right, or a
No,
well,
let's just call it packaging because now, I mean, I know where you're going, dude. I mean, you can't because
you
of
can't,
tensile
right,
strength and all
right,
that other kind of stuff. But in packaging, seems like it might be able to work, right? If you have it in,
right. You
because
might
then you would
work.
actually need tertiary packaging rules and secondary packaging rules and primary packaging rules would be different, right?
Right.
Obviously,
If you had packaging as a category, yeah, I think you could start
yes.
there. That might work. But just to touch on the other stuff, you're going to a theater in New York City. They've got specific laws just on what the chairs are made out of. They got their own I think it's called Port Authority, but they own the theaters and there's a special low smoke just for them. And other guys will use that low smoke variant, and that stuff's not going to recycle into anything else.
Oh,
Oh
okay,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. That goes back to some fire laws, decades ago.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you start getting into, I mean, but for products, trying to get at a wide
Yeah,
range
that
of
ain't gonna
people,
work. You're gonna be throwing
that's
that
going to be
stuff.
really, really hard.
The only thing you can do with that stuff is grind it up and use it as a filler.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Which that's, I mean, and that's kicking the can down the road, so to speak, a bit, but it's better than nothing
Right.
in many cases, right? Locking it into brick pavers or polywoods
There's a
or
lot of
something
uses.
like that.
If
Yeah,
you've got enough volume, almost everything works in asphalt.
yeah. There you go. That's
You know,
exactly right.
and there's a need every day. You know,
Yeah, yeah. Throwing it into
I
asphalt.
know. I remember talking to one guy who was pouring roads, and he said, "If you got 100,000 pounds to try, and then you give me a continuous stream of 100,000 pounds every so often, yeah, I'll put it in my roads." And I couldn't. I didn't have enough volume, so it was going in the trash, into the landfill.
Yeah, because of the volume, lack of
The volume
volume.
wasn't there.
Yeah,
Right. It's everything's tied to volume. No one's going to sit there and do a little bit. They're just not going to do it.
yeah. No, it's got to be enough volume. It's very, and that's the thing is, I'm in the recycling side of things with OPT USA, and there's nobody out there that'll say, no, I don't want any PCR. Nobody will say, no, I don't want any. It's very rare. I won't say nobody, but it's very, very rare. Um, but the problem is you can't get what they need.
Well,
They'll take it, you just can't get it.
they used to call it
It's very
utility.
difficult.
All right. And utility was cheap. All right.
Yeah,
When you want to make something cheap, you bought a utility grade, which was a homogeneous mess of everything that was recycled in that resin category.
yeah,
And then it became more important to have that PCR label. Then the price went up.
yep,
All right. So all the major extrusion houses and calendaring firms, now the PCR label with documentation is more expensive than resin, than virgin.
yeah, and that's a problem.
Right. So you just gave them a reason to raise the price. Who paid for that?
Well, it's only the consumers because
There you go.
right, because I mean, if you deal with industrial plastics like say irrigation piping and that type of stuff, nobody cares if there's PCR in there.
No, we don't care.
Nobody cares. You could put PCR in there because it's no more
But
really
they
more
want it
expensive.
still cheap. You still has to be cheap. So
It's got to be cheap.
if the big guy wants, I don't want to use a big guy. I know what best and probably most offensive. Um, when you want all these things, the documentation, I want a guaranteed supply chain certification. It's definitely this resin from this, all these things. I got all these check marks here.
Right, you got the provenance on it,
Right. You just raise the price, and you got to have volume.
and you got to have volume, which kills, the demand.
Yep.
Yeah, um, yeah, it's a difficult thing to go through. I think there's possibilities to do it. I think the problem is, um, and you might agree. I have a feeling you'll agree with the experts aren't the ones trying to figure out the solutions or
The
the
money man is
motivation.
standing in the way.
Yeah, money is standing in the way.
And I'm on both sides of the fence on that. The money
Yeah,
man has to be involved if you don't make money, you're done. All right.
yeah,
On the
right.
same side, if you ignore the problem, society as we know it is done.
Yes,
So there's a walk here. If I was targeting, I'll name some names here. I would go to Procter and Gamble. They got all those Pringles and all those things. Could you force them to
homogenize the packaging.
right?
And I would contend, and I can't speak for them, but I did hear a sustainability officer of a major consumer goods packaging company, right? A food, who said, "Yeah, we understand. If we didn't do this, we could improve recycling overnight,
Oh yeah.
drastically."
If you
But
just grab
that's our marketing, and we're not going to change it.
if you grabbed Unilever and P&G and you could just pull those two in, the big consumer giants.
Yeah,
If you could grab those two, you could set the standard and then they could use it in their marketing. Oh, look, we're the only guys that are doing this and we're the only guys doing that. And the rest of you guys are killing the environment and your children.
yeah.
You know,
It's the rest of you guys' fault.
right. As soon as you invoke the kids, you're killing your grandkids, you're killing your kids. Oh, suddenly, oh, they're baby killers. Oh, you'll fix that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I hate to say that, but that's, That's what I would do. I'd target the big guys. I'm not telling you what to do, but I think, hey,
No, I understand that. I
yeah, a
understand that.
little free advice there.
Free advice. I appreciate that very much. Scott, this has been tremendous. It's been a great, lively conversation. Your realistic view. Some might call you a pessimist, but I don't think that's true.
No,
I think
I'm a realist.
you're a
I know it
realist.
has to be done, and I know there's a cost involved. And how do you
Yeah,
get the consumer to pay for it, and without
yeah,
regulating the hell out of it, to where the government says has to open another agency just to, to regulate it? Come on, no, we don't need to do that. But
yeah, yeah. But
how do you?
we do need to find a solution,
Yes, and
and
you
it's
could
very
put
difficult.
RFK should be on this because you streamline this and take the toxic chemicals out of the plastics. You'll save a lot of lives.
You'll save a lot of lives
Might be mine and yours.
amen, and a lot of money though too. Just dealing with issues that arise that are not life threatening, but maybe lifestyle altering and cause a lot of money to be spent. A
You ever
lot of
been to
money
New
to be spent.
York?
I have.
Okay, you
Yeah.
drive through the giant piles that used to be the garbage dumps of the past decades, those
Yeah.
mountains.
Yeah. Yeah.
Think about if that was usable land.
Right.
What can developers build on a dump? I don't think they can
No. Mm-mm.
because
No,
if
I don't
nothing
think
else,
they
the
can.
methane coming off it.
The methane coming off. There was one. The only place that I know of 100% certain because I'd been there when I was a kid was there was a ski mountain in Michigan that was made on a.
But that makes sense. You can still vent the methane,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
that makes sense.
The locals called it Mount Trashmore, and you could go skiing on it.
I just remember going to a perfume company. Can't remember which one it was now. It was right off the Meadowlands. And I'm looking at these big piles. Like, what is that? And I'd asked somebody. I'd never been there before. And they said it's the old trash piles. Like, you got to be kidding me. Within virtual sight distance of New York City, and
Yeah.
you're not wanting this land?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's lack of foresight. I think. Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, we're village idiots. Absolutely. Now we got to fix this problem. Let me make sure I'm clear to the viewer. I'm not for the big guy sticking it to all the people because we're sticking it to ourselves. But
Yeah.
it's how you manage it. It's how you manage it. How can you build it to where it doesn't raise dramatically the price, and the consumer can still eat it. The consumer can still stomach it financially.
Yeah.
You follow
Yeah.
me?
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely, and I believe those solutions are out there if they're done the right way. It's very difficult, and it's going to take it takes collaboration. I mean, I hate to say buzzwords like that, but it just does. Like you're saying,
Well,
you have to get the Procter and Gamble's on board. You got to get the Unilevers on board. You got to get the legislators on board with all these experts to figure this out and to implement sound, reasonable solutions or regulations that will foster the right solutions,
in the
right? I
first
mean,
in the first weeks of my plastic career, I walked through Hercules Chemical. All right,
uh-huh.
and they were making ultra high molecular weight polyethylene, very specific thing. And I had a couple very specific questions, and they had a senior officer walk through with me, and I'm talking to the scientists and the engineers, and they wouldn't let them answer the questions.
Really?
Yeah, because I asked pointed questions that may or may not be good PR, even back in the
Yeah,
80s.
yeah, yeah. Imagine that.
Well, so what I'm
Must
saying
have been
is,
really bad.
right. So I don't remember my question was. I just remember the guy looking at me like, "Don't answer that question" to
Yeah,
his scientists and engineers.
yeah.
So you're right. It's going to take collaboration. You're in the right kind of position. You could be an influencer on making this happen. Like to help you if you're interested, and
Oh, I'm always interested. I will.
maybe we started
We'll
today,
definitely.
and maybe we
Maybe
started
we.
today.
Maybe we just started today, and I have a feeling that we actually did because this is my passion, and I believe listening to you, you're obviously very passionate about this as well. So
Oh, absolutely. I love plastics, but I don't think it's the solution for everything.
100%. And I have my shirt from the plastics industry that says I love. It says I love plastics, and on the back it says I hate plastic waste. There you go.
Reminds you of that old T-shirt. I love toxic waste.
was wasn't that a was that a Dead Kennedys album? Maybe
I don't know, but it was on Real
no.
Genius with Val Kilmer.
Oh yeah, it was. That's
Yeah.
exactly
And
right.
he
Wow,
walked in.
there's an old movie, brother.
Yeah, well, let's see that, but that's then you and I are around the same age, at least
Oh, we're pretty
mentally,
darn. We're very close. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
at least
Absolutely.
mentally. So anyway,
Yeah,
so we solved
yeah.
the world's problems today.
No, but I think we certainly did not. But we may have we definitely spark a lot of conversation, a lot of thought. Right?
That's what I do best. I love going in a room and throwing stuff at the wall and getting someone to say what they're thinking. And maybe
Yeah,
that's what you did to me today too.
yeah. Well, that and if we do that enough, maybe we have started a solution somewhere,
You
and
just got to
maybe
make sure
that's.
you're not sitting there with a plastic lobbyist when you do this. He's gonna be kicking you under the table.
I've been kicked by worse. Hey, better, by the way. Anyways, listen, Scott, this has been fantastic. I really appreciate you coming on, my friend. Do you want to plug anything? Are you like opening act at the Boneyard or Funny Bone
No,
in Kearney, New
I'm a
Jersey?
manufacturing guy. I'm a hire for contract time. So what do you want to make? I'm primarily packaging, but I've done products as well. I've marketed a couple product lines that are off the line now. When my company was sold, the guy who bought us didn't like the product. So if you're a light gauge thermoformer and you need a couple product lines, call me.
There you go, Scott McDonald. And so on LinkedIn, is it just Scott space M?
I don't remember why. It's Scott McDonald, your manufacturing guru, and then
There
that
you
comes right
go.
up.
There you go.
If you Google that, and again, I'm a teacher, guru. I'm not saying I know everything. I'm a teacher. I'll teach you what I know.
He's the sultan of plastics. Don't let him kid you.
I wish I was, but I know more than most. Let's put it that way.
Reach out to him. You'll have a fantastic conversation, and he'll steer you in the right way. That is
An
absolutely.
honest
And
way. I'll give you everything as honestly I can. I don't hold back.
there is no doubt. I think if anybody listened to this and thought you held back, they're crazy.
No.
You do not. You have proven that for sure, and I
Ralph
appreciate that
Nader
very
is
much.
my idol.
There you go, brother. You need a shirt that says that. Ralph
You're right.
Nader.
Yeah, that's a good one. Ralph Nader is my idol. Yeah.
Yeah,
I actually
that'd be
voted
very.
for him. Like the
There
only
you
idiot
go.
probably in the country that voted for Ralph Nader in 2000.
You're the guy.
I
You're the
was.
guy who did it.
He had been a
Oh,
terrible
that's
president, but you wouldn't have all the toxic waste.
I'm in transportation, and I have my "I like Ike" button
Do you really?
because yeah, absolutely,
I'm not
absolutely. Wait,
that
he
old.
created the internet. He created the
Interstate highway
highways.
system.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
but
I
you
like
know
that
that interstate highway system is why it's so thick, don't you?
for landing.
For moving tanks and heavy equipment.
Yeah, well, that's what that was. It was economic prosperity as well, but also obviously military purposes
Yes,
for sure.
but when you read that spec of that thickness of that road, I started estimating in that business. You realize that so much of this country is built around a military spec.
Yeah, but it's important. I mean, because I mean, logistics wins wars.
I'm not arguing. I'm just saying when somebody says, "Oh, they built a beltway around Baltimore or any big city for us to ease a transportation consumer." Oh
No, no,
no,
no, no, no,
oh
no,
no,
no.
no. You were an afterthought.
Yeah, yeah, that's 100% true. That's 100% true. Yeah, we're going off on all kinds of tangents. Hey, Scott McDonald, your manufacturing guru or your
Yeah, your
plastics manufacturer?
manufacturing guru.
Your
It's
manufacturing guru.
MAC.
Yeah, it's
MAC.
McDonald. It's not McDonald.
Yeah,
It's
everybody says Mick,
McDonald.
but it's Mac.
It's McDonald. Excuse me if I
That's
pronounced it
okay.
wrong. You're
I'm
correct.
cool.
Yeah. Well, I know you're cool. I just want to
Michael,
make sure you're happy as well and understand that I respect your
no,
opinion and you,
you're a
sir.
good guy.
You're
I like you.
fantastic.
Ask me
Fantastic.
anytime.
I agree. I appreciate that very much. Hey, listen, everybody. Thanks for tuning in and downloading the Sustainiacs, and reach out to Scott McDonald, your manufacturing guru. He's the man. He's going to steer you right. There's no doubt about that. So, and he's going to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear, which is
Exactly.
important.
Thank you,
And
Michael.
that is what you want to hear. Right?
Right.
So, anyways, peace and love, everybody. Thank you so much.
See you, Michael. Oh.
Hey,